Hello, my name is Gregory Gibbons, and like always, I'm trying to find very interesting things that are happening here in our community. And one of the people that I'm about to interview right now was part of the building of this big gigantic dam that we now have in Hemet, California, and everything else. She is a archaeologist. No, she is an archaeologist. She does not carry a bullwhip or have a leather fedora, and she hasn't played in any movies, but she is just as well knowledge as all the rest of them. So if you can, and I'd like to introduce Marilyn, and she's going to tell us a couple things about what she did and what she works on, and everything else. You said you're retired now, right?
Right. I've been retired for several years now, so I'm not actively working in archaeology anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I came down here originally to work on the reservoir when that started in 1992. And we were here before all of the equipment arrived and did a survey of the entire area looking for prehistoric and historic sites. We then had a brief period before construction began to do the archaeology and the assessment of the sites. My job actually was not so much out in the field as it was in the laboratory. And I had to keep track of all of the artifacts that were brought in.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Because you're categorizing and tagging all this stuff,
cleaning it as well.
And where exactly was it found at, and you have to note
yes,
that.
Keeping track of everything. And we had 4 crews in the field, so I had 8 individuals in the lab helping.
Mm-hmm.
And doing the computer data as well as a lot of hand, like putting numbers on artifacts. And
so are you date stamping the stuff as you go through when you pull the particular fossils and stuff out of the ground? Is that the type of equipment you're talking about, that when you said you're working on it, or you're just like cleaning it up and making it look?
We cleaned it up and put the provenience data with it, so that we knew exactly where it came from on the landscape and in the depth of the excavation as well. And that little tag of information, computerized and also hand labeled in a bag with the item, stays with it, so that when everything is categorized like that and labeled like that, it could go to specialists who would look at the bone and identify the bone fragments, or look at the stone, identify exactly what it was and how it was manufactured, and also where the source of material was, and other kinds of data that archaeologists look for when they're doing. So basically, what I did was facilitate the preparation of all of this information, and then it would go to the specialist, come back to me for storage, and then eventually we set up a curation system that was accepted by the museum, and it's now out at the museum here in Hemet.
And if I may ask, when did you go to school for all this? And where did you go to school for all this?
Well, I kind of backed into archaeology. I thought I was going to become a nurse when I went to college the first time, and I took all the biological science classes and things. But I got married and I had a family, and it wasn't until my kids were in junior high that I began to get interested in archaeology. And I got interested in archaeology because we bought some old farmland in Kansas, and I discovered that there were stone artifacts on this property, and I didn't know anything about them. And the more I asked local people, the less satisfied I was with the answers. So I got involved with the Kansas State Museum, and they had a program for amateurs in archaeology.
And this is back when?
Oh, probably in the late 60s.
Okay.
Late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
And I got involved with that program and went through their training course and began to record sites in the area. This goes back also to the information that you were asking me about, the artifacts that I had.
Mm-hmm.
I collected at that time a number of artifacts off of our property in the plow zone. So every time the soil would be worked, I would go out and pick up things.
Could just kick it.
Because it would be kicked up.
Right, kicked up immediately.
And I have 2 collections from our property that I have just finished packing up, and those I have donated to the Anderson County Museum in Garnett, Kansas.
Are they going to make a wing for you? They're going to call it a wing? They're going to call
No. It's
okay.
just 3 small boxes.
Okay.
It's going back to the county where it was discovered.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll be something that interns in museum studies and things like that, or in archaeology, may be able to use and do some studies on. There's no exact location for most of these things,
Right.
because they have been in a plow zone, and that property was plowed for 50 years before I started.
Oh, so everything was moved.
Everything is truly mixed. It's like nuts in a fruit cake. So I'm hoping that will benefit both the local community and students in the future.
Well, I see that's what you're doing by having some type of basis, the interest, for them to see once again that everything old is new again. With your moving up to the area in Hemet that you're working on, what compared to the Kansas site, what was the size? 5 square miles in Kansas to almost what?
Oh no. The sites are pretty localized. The area that we studied is different.
Okay.
On our private property, the sites might be 8 acres at most, something like that.
Okay.
Or less.
Okay.
Or less.
Well, that's still 8 acres. Is still a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, confined to stream bed area, local.
Compared to
To this
site out
the
here.
reservoir area, which was linear length is about 4 miles probably by the time we finished.
Wow.
And in that that area we identified, I don't remember the exact number. It turned out to be something like 375 sites. But it's a bigger area. There's no way to compare the two, really.
Okay.
But to go back to my education on this, this is what sparked my interest, and eventually I had an opportunity we moved to Montana, and we moved to Bozeman in part so that I could go back to school, and I went to the university there and picked up a degree in anthropology and archaeology, and also worked with the university to get more experience.
If you don't mind me asking, was it all male and you were the only female?
It was still predominantly male.
Okay.
Now the field is changing rapidly, and many really good female archaeologists are working
I'm
with
saying
them.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not stating about your age or anything else, but you're saying back in the 60s and 70s, I wouldn't think that women were getting involved with this. So you're sort of like a groundbreaker.
Right.
In this particular
There weren't that many, and we did feel that we had to work harder to be taken seriously. That's all changed now, fortunately.
Well, we like to think that it's all changed, but some things always remain the same under the covers and everything else like that. I'm hoping that it is true what you said, that it has gotten better for women in this particular field and everything else.
Well,
But
eventually I went even further and got a master's in liberal studies from Norman, Oklahoma,
mm-hmm.
and I did my work in museum studies. So that worked out perfectly for coming down here, because they wanted the artifacts all prepared and then set up in a curation system. So I had the opportunity to make my own curation system.
So you developed your own.
I developed a system for it's sort of like a library book.
Mm-hmm.
If you would come in and ask me for a certain item, and if you had the number, just the basic number, I would be able to go to the right box, within that box, and so on and so forth, and then be able to bring that item to you within just about maybe 10 minutes.
Well, that's good. My camera's not, my Alexa camera's not picking up some of the stuff you have before us. Do you want to show any of the pieces that you have before us?
The other specialty that I developed in the process of doing the archaeology was to make replicas. And the artifacts that I will be showing are all replicas. These are items that I've made. These are not the original item, and
wow.
They're.
I can't tell. I could not have said that what we're looking at was not the real thing. It looks real to me.
Well, that's the whole idea, and one of the things that I tried hardest to do was to replicate the color and the inclusions and things in it, so that it would be within the range of variability. If you looked at the original and 4 pieces, you would have trouble picking out the original.
Which I'm having trouble doing right now.
So,
since you tell me these are all replicas, I'm going.
Is the camera picking this up?
Yes, it is.
I made molds using a product called Celastic. And it gives such fine detail that if I'm not careful, I could actually replicate my fingerprint.
Wow. And
it's a very expensive product, but it does give wonderful detail. This is a 2-piece mold, and there's a cast inside it. I just finished making some of these about 3 months ago.
Okay.
And that's the way they go together. The items are actually all made out of epoxy, and I use an epoxy that allows me to color the clear epoxy, because you go from wanting something bone color, and this is a bone, to wanting something that's a jasper or red. And then there are all stages of things in between. Some of them are multiple colors, and all of them are a challenge to replicate. Because if you make a mold, this is a bone needle, probably a horn needle, and you can see it's got a strange curvature. It's also very, very thin. So it's very fragile to work with the originals, and you want to get it right the first time, because you don't want to put the original in any kind of jeopardy. But then when you've got a piece like this, if this should break, you're talking, a small loss. It can be replaced.
Right.
And so what often happens, and why this is an important thing to do, is that this can go in your display cabinet, or this can go to your hands-on display. And if something happens to it, that's fine. The original is back in the laboratory and is available for various scientists to study. And so mostly I made items for museums, for projects where there was a certain amount of sensitivity involved. Like if the items were to be reburied, sometimes the Native Americans would request that I made the artifacts so that they could keep some in their cultural center. And then they could rebury with the burials. They could rebury the originals.
Wow.
And so all of the stuff that I made was for scientific purposes. I never made anything for resale. And many of these items, almost all of the items that I made, I have kind of a promise. It was never actually in writing, but I made a promise that I would make only for that individual or for that project.
Right.
So if you came to me with a series of very beautiful items, they were yours, and these molds belonged to you as long as they were still good.
Okay. And again, these molds that you created, you designed and everything else to make these particular molds, because like I said, I can't tell that these are not the real thing, and I guess you would have to be an archaeologist to know that, oh, this is fake and this is what's real and everything else like that. But how long does the mold last?
These molds, I've had some that well, you can make multiple copies, maybe 10 or 15, and then it begins to break down.
Okay.
Because the epoxy is very hot when it cures.
Okay.
And the edges are, where you've got a very small edge up against the actual artifact, and it'll start to pull away on that edge.
So is it like I would say, like you would. It's sealed, and you would pour the epoxy inside of it, and then it would cool. Then you would take it apart.
I would pour each half, and I would add the color. I'd add the color, try to get the coloration, try to get the little inclusions into the medium, and then pour it. And because several things happen when you pour something that generates heat. And one of the things that happens is your color may change slightly.
Right.
And so I would...
So almost like a kiln or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I almost always had to pour at least one that wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. Except when you do a big black one. Usually black's okay.
Okay.
But... if you want to add color, it gets really tricky. So I might have even 2 or 3 that I would not give to the person who was, contracting with me for the purchase of these.
Now, you said these contractors. You said you made a personal deal with, say that if I'm going to copy these, so you can go ahead and put these on display. And would you give them the mold too, or would you?
No, I kept the mold. The mold belonged to them, but I kept it for 2 reasons. It is kind of, I guess, in that field of this is my property.
Right.
I did this work, and I have certain ways of doing it. And if I give you the mold, and you go to Joe Blow down the street, and he does a bad job of making a cast. Then they'd say, "Oh, but it was her mold." And
so you took it very, very, very personal.
Oh, absolutely. And so I would keep the mold, and that way, in 2 years, if you had breakage or you had a loss or something, or even 3 or 4 years down the road, if you wanted more copies, I could dig out the original mold and wouldn't have to charge for the whole process again.
And if I may ask, what was back then, or now? How much would something like this cost for you, for a person of your expertise to sit there and say, I found this particular the shell you have right over here, and I want you to make a mold for me. What was the cost? What would that cost now?
Well, what I can tell you is, without having calculated it in the last few years, it is an expensive process, and I tried to base it on my time, at my regular salary, plus the cost of materials. And for 9 pounds of this Scholastic, the last time I priced it, which was over a year ago, it was selling for almost $300
For 9 pounds?
for 9 pounds.
And that would give you, how would you say, how many
Depending on the size. You know, if you have a size like this, you're not going to get that much out of it. If you have a size like this, you could get as many as 30 or 40
Okay.
out of 9 pounds.
9 pounds. So
because this one is actually quite thick. You can make them thinner.
But you knew what you were doing, and your molds were basically made to last long, just in case a person would break or damage the mold that you made for them. You wanted to be able to pop back out another one.
Right, and I never did this. I did this as a sideline. I never intended to make money off of it. Really, in the sense of making a profit. I think it'd be really hard to do.
Actually, like I said, this particular profession that you're working in, it sounds like it was just a great joy to find the artifacts.
For me, there's a lot of personal satisfaction in being able to fill that niche and give a product that you know is essentially it's there for as long as they need it, you know, for study and for displays. And I felt that I liked being part of that. And one of the benefits of it was that I got to handle some fantastic items that I never would have seen otherwise. For example, this is a replica of the oldest wooden artifact to come out of Washington State. Now, they may have found something older that I don't know about, but when I
older than James? James was her husband.
Yeah, this was, I believe, in the 2,000 to 3,000 year old.
Well, he's
quite old.
He's a teacher, so that's about the same age. But go ahead.
And so, you know, most people don't even get to see these, let alone handle them. So. And this is the replica, by the way.
No. I truly understand. If my audience does not understand what you're doing, you're allowing actual people who want to get into this or actually to see this stuff to actually put hands on to the material, and knowing that, hey, if I accidentally slip and I drop it, I can get another one made, and it's not like you're destroying something that's 3,000 years old or 2,000 or a million years old. You can actually get it replaced quickly, not quickly, but have it call you to get it redone to get it back out there. Or again, for those crooks, you're all still in fakes. So, by the way, if you were out there and you thought, wow, I can steal these things and everything else, and then somebody goes like, by the way, all this stuff is all replicas. You just did a real good job. You just didn't know it. But it's just something to know that you take it very personally, and I can tell by the art, the pieces, and the colors and everything else. I can't tell the difference. And I used to collect rocks back when I was a kid, back in dinosaur days, but I really cannot tell the difference. So I can tell that you were very detailed in your work and everything else when you put this stuff together. May take a closer look, and I'm going to walk in on some of this stuff here. I don't know how you could possibly tell. I mean, unless you are, Indiana Jones or somebody else in archival business, that you can tell the fake from the originals, because this stuff is so beautifully and hand done, and again with the time and effort that you put into it and everything else, I really cannot tell the difference between the original and the fake. But it was, I think, it's something very important to you, and if I cannot say that we all appreciate what you did, and now that I know something else now about this fair city that I live in, that somebody has taken the time to make sure that everybody can enjoy it, and it'll be around for a while. and everything else like that. What do you? How long do you? You said the molds don't last that long. You said.
Well, it depends on how many replicas you pull out of them, and eventually they just begin to deteriorate. Like some of the ones that I've just gotten rid of. Haven't had that many pulled off of them, but they're old. They're 20 years old, and they're starting to the material starts to yellow out.
But again, basically, this is, lack of a better word, this is out of love and caring for something that you wanted other people to see and do and actually touch it, because since we're such a touchy-feely people now in the 21st century, be able to hold that piece and be able to show how they use this piece for and everything else, and know that it's a replica, but it's a very, 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 very good replica of a piece, and this is how they used it to work. Like I said, the arrowheads and everything else. You were saying you were talking about the working with tribes of different Indian cultures and stuff like that. So, what made you do this stuff instead of the bigger stuff, instead of like woolly mammoths or something like that, or T-Rex?
This is the kind of material that I normally had opportunity to work with. I'm not a paleontologist, and there are lots of people that are very good at doing the big stuff, and it's a different technology in some ways, and in some ways it's very much the same. But there's just it's a real challenge, if when you're working with color with a two-piece mold, you're working from the inside out and with mirror images. And it does very strange things to your head after a while.
I can imagine what type of glasses or what type of mirror glasses you had on to look at the original and put those details into that stuff.
Sometimes I paint the inside of the mold actually, and I have to follow out the little tiny subtle changes in the stone in order to do that. It is very time consuming and very tricky.
But again, you're talking about a love for something that's going to help and to help people learn and everything else, which comes to my big question is that it educates our young people. That they know that there was something before them, and you're not just taking stuff that they consider to be ancient late records and stuff like that. Actually, you're going further back. You're actually showing where everything started from,
Yes,
and stuff like
these
that.
are very useful for classroom, hand stuff to just show and tell and have the kids be able to actually hold it in their hands and feel it. Kids are very perceptive, though. They can tell a cast from the real more quicker than an adult can, and it has to do with the temperature difference between stone and epoxy.
Okay.
They pick up on that. And I might add, since you're doing this for the community, that my replicas are floating around in a number of exhibits in different museums in the area.
Okay. Different. Oh, that's coffee. Okay.
Sorry.
I thought you were making a replica for me or something. I just wanted to make sure. Where's all your work located from? From here to the East Coast. You want to Smithsonian, Chicago.
Actually, I made a piece like this for the Smithsonian. I've worked on several of the early man stuff.
Okay.
Museum in Helena, Montana has a set of artifacts I did. I've made some for a museum in Alaska. I made some pieces for a museum in the Bishop Museum in Hawaii.
Does it bear your name, or it just?
No, it doesn't, and I've never advertised either.
Okay.
All of the work that I've done has been word of mouth.
Okay.
So I could have maybe gone further afield with it, but I didn't want to give up doing archaeology to focus on this.
Okay.
Because it wasn't an either or. I wanted to do both.
Okay. Okay.
So a number of museums do have some of my work, and a number of tribes have collections that I've done for them. Libby, Montana, I've done a bunch of work for the Corps of Engineers, which ended up with the tribe for their cultural center. The desert tribes here I've done some work for, and that'll end up in their cultural center. And I've done some for the Chumash and various other Native American groups around the country.
Okay. And in closing, I always ask this big question: what do you think the biggest accomplishment that you of work that you've done? What do you think that is? What do you think it is by being able to say that you've made something that's going to be passed on to other people, or the fact that you did something that you loved for all these many years?
That's a hard question, really, because I have worked on some fantastic projects, and I've met some wonderful people and shared, great experiences. To me, it has been an adventure, and it's been fun. I've been able to work with, like, the 6th grade out at the reservoir with mock dig and try to instill in them some of the excitement of being able to look back and to be able to understand where we were and what we've come from, and just it brings so much to your life because there's so many aspects that tie into archaeology. You never look at the landscape the way you did before you understand where man has been. And that part's been great. I think just in terms of recent accomplishment, the big collection out at the reservoir that I worked with, we had over 444,000 artifacts, and when we came down to trying to account for everything, there were less than 60 that were unaccountable.
Wow.
And so I think that that's a major accomplishment. I just felt a great deal of relief because there were a lot of people involved in handling those items, and I think we did a great job.
I think you did a great job too, and I greatly appreciate your time, Marilyn, for talking to me about this, and for me to get this out into the rest of the world. And hopefully we can find some more young archaeologists to want to get into this, and maybe getting into the field that you were in, and again to show the love and do it out of love of what you did and everything else. I'd like to thank you again for your time, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thanks.